It's
Oh,
starting.
we're live. Okay, we're rolling. Okay, welcome everyone to our February Genius Entrepreneur Mastermind, and welcome to our two awesome speakers today. We have got, first of all, Janet Attwood, who has just flown from Thailand to Copenhagen. Hi, Janet.
Hi, Roger.
And we also have got Stig here. Stig, where are you in the world right now?
Still stuck in Mexico. Beautiful La Paz.
Wow, you're still in Mexico. I have to get. So Stig was showing me these photos of like whales. Like, well, I think the whales you showed me were whale sharks, but apparently there's blue whales and all sorts down in La Paz, and I didn't even realize, right? So I definitely have to go there. So we'll get onto the story of what you're doing there in a moment, Stig. But welcome to the call. Welcome to you both. And just before we jump into the call, let me give everyone a bit of an overview on what we're up to, what we're doing. I know many of you have been on many of these calls. Some of you are here for the very first time. And so we are using this here, which is the Genius Entrepreneur Mastermind on Genius U, to post all of our messages. So I'm going to post here right now. You can see here, you probably are watching on this link right now. I do post where you are in the world right now. Would love to hear from you also. You can post down below on that. And we are also going to, I think if anyone happens to be on the Facebook page that was here, let me just post here and just share with everyone. All comments, post at we are started. All right. Now, the other thing is that we will come back later in the call to the questions that people are asking as well. So there'll be a number of these that we will be asking our guest speakers here today as well. So do post yours down here along with your successes. So those links are all here too. And to give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about, we have got, well, first of all, with Stig, I'm actually going to post a few of these different links here that Stig's got, which are of his 22-minute world record breathing, and then also a really awesome documentary you can watch here as well, right? To hear more about Stig Severinsen, who has most recently, actually in January, joined our Crystal Circle and also become an investor in Genius U. And we're going to be hearing all about him and how he has built around his passion and purpose his business, which is Breathology. So we're going to come to that in a moment. We're also obviously talking about passion, cannot do that without having Janet here as well. So we're going to be talking to Janet about the whole keys on how you link your passion to your purpose, which is obviously exactly what she's been doing. And many of you have already taken the passion test on our platform. And then Janet has the real passion test, which actually goes much deeper, which she actually goes as well. And so with that being shared, let me stop sharing my screen for a moment. And I am going to start with you, Stig. I would love for you to share, when was the point when you realized that this whole breathing thing wasn't just some kind of unconscious thing that humans do, but actually something that you could consciously not just control, but actually use to empower your life as well? I'd love to just hear that little bit of a story of how that happened.
Yeah, well, of course, after holding my breath for the first 9 months, I thought, let's start to breathe. And so, we all come from that. That's maybe an important thing to know. But I think it was when I was about 6 years old, I actually got very, very severe asthma. So severe that I hardly couldn't breathe. And everyone who has had an asthmatic attack or felt that horrible feeling of not getting enough air and clenching your teeth and just feeling horrible. That was a wake-up call for me. And through being very active.
Were you born? Because I was born with asthma, right? And then I've gone for my whole life trying to figure it out. Were you born with it, or did it show up as a young child?
Yeah, it came as a young child. I was always very active, very happy and positive and running around and catching animals and stuff. But it actually got, I think we got guinea pigs at home, my brother and I, and then also all the grass and the stuff you put into these guinea pigs. I think that kind of triggered it because I got all the tests done, and then it was cat allergies were strong and horses, and so I kind of grew out of that again, and with sports and breathing. And then I did a lot of breath holding, and I found out much later in my life that breath holding is like one of the best cures or treatments for asthma. So to get all of your medicine and inhalers and stuff out of the way, put it on the shelf. We can get back to that, but that was something I experienced myself through kind of self-healing. So that was my wake-up call, basically from not being able to breathe well to understand, wow, we actually need to pay attention to this. But you know, as a child, it's more intuitive. It's not something you're not going to sit down and write a book about it when you're 6 years old, right? It's more something, it's part of your life, and you know it's horrible, and you can see that you can't do what you could do, usually running and playing football and stuff, but you don't have the same awareness as a child as you do when you grow up.
Right. And so that obviously became something that you just took a personal interest in. And when was the point when you got to a point where you're like, you know what, I'm actually doing this so well, I could be best in the world at this?
Yeah, well, that came as a crazy dream. All my life I have been a competitive swimmer, and I loved water. I was born, you know, we had a boat. We have a boat in my family. We had a big, nice pool in my backyard. So I always loved these games, like most children do, of holding your breath. And just if anyone is listening out there and thinking about the same, I have kids who do the same. Please never hold your breath alone underwater. It's really a serious business. For fun, yes, but don't push the envelope. Because it can actually feel so good that you become unconscious, and that's not very good underwater if there's no one to fish you out. So just you know, sincere warning. But other than that, I swam all my life, and I was actually, you know, when you're like 7, 8, 10 years old, you always compare yourself to the older boys, the older guys, right? With the broad shoulders and, you know, big muscles. And there's, of course, no way you can outswim those guys, but I could outdive them. We had a game called Sharks and Goldfish, and that was my favorite game in the whole world. And it was a very simple game. All the sharks would be starting in one side of the pool and all the goldfish in the other, and you would dive down, hold your breath, and then when the sharks caught a goldfish, that goldfish would turn into a shark. So eventually there would be one left, and that would be the little goldfish, right? And everyone else had turned into sharks. And I love that game, and actually just saw a friend a few weeks ago at Las Vegas at the CES show, and he was very, very successful in his line of work. What he invented the head-up display, Recon, before Google Google glasses, and he's very interested in everything with sports. So we talked about how I was always the last goldfish. So it started as a game, which I think I'm sure Janet can come back to that, you know, with passion and purpose. It starts as a game. You don't have a plan. You don't have a business plan, to say the least. But then it evolved into competitive swimming, and I like to kind of cheat the trainers, so stay under while my friends were swimming 2 laps, and then I would go again, you know, like child's play. And then I got into judo in my young teens. So kind of the Eastern philosophy was spurred. I was spurred onto that. And then when I was in my late teens, I started to do spearfishing, and then I traveled around the world, and that was when I found out, oh my goodness, it is so much easier just to jump in the water, hold your breath. I could hold it for about 5 minutes at that time, and you didn't need tanks, scuba equipment, and you were truly free, as it's called free diving, right? So that's kind of led me on. And then I moved to Spain in 1997. After being traveling the world for a year, I was studying biology at the university at that time. So I took some time off to feel, you know, people, cultures, animals, feel them. I'm very tactile. And there I did a lot of spearfishing and a lot of study and physiology and brain scans and stuff. And it was like, this is more than 20 years ago, all this pioneer work. And I just found out that I was actually quite good at holding my breath. And just to learn Spanish, because I didn't speak a word Spanish when I moved to Barcelona. I didn't even know they spoke Catalan, which is a different language that 80% of the teachers are speaking, because they're very orgulloso. They're very proud in Spain after the Franco, you know, tyrant and all this stuff, historic stuff in the 70s. So I picked up a magazine, and it was beautiful, and it was just to learn to read Spanish, and it was a dive magazine. And I saw the world record that had been done in Sardinia in Italy. And I thought, I can do that. So that was the first moment, and I have that magazine, of course, at home. It was the first moment I thought maybe I could take my skills and bring them up to that level. And
how old were you at that point?
I was 24.
24. And so you went on this whole path where you got a whole bunch of different world records for free diving and for holding your breath, and then of course the irony is that your business is all about teaching people how to breathe as opposed to how to hold their breath, right? Although the two are obviously related. What was the point when you realized, you know, you didn't have to go and just get an ordinary job and then do your passion on the side, but actually you could integrate it all together? Was that obvious to you at that point, or did it kind of come later?
No, first of all, I never had a job. I think most of the people on this call never had a job. I worked a lot as a child and did different things, you know, and I was very dedicated to all that, but I've never been working a 9-to-5 job. I never thought that would be a good idea. So you know, I just talked with Janet about this before. When you're working on your skill development, your perfection, you know, you become very, if not egotistical, very self-aware and self-centered, because you need to focus all that energy. So I didn't have, you know, like the normal relationship. I didn't go out drinking at night. I didn't go dancing, you know, all the weekend. So I was very dedicated. And it was actually another friend of mine who, and I'll get back to what you're asking me. It was another friend of mine who actually had the vision that you talk so much about, Roger, and you know, the capacity to actually visualize something bigger, a grander future for me. So in the year 2000, he was a sports psychologist and a friend, and we were studying at that time. I was starting on my PhD in medicine in those years, and he was doing sports psychology. And he said, "Steve, we should set goals and we should do like stepping, you know, stones. And for the next 4 years, tell me a plan, what you're going to sacrifice of money, time, relationships, and so forth." So I wrote that down on normal blank paper as we did in those days. And I came up with some Danish records and Nordic records I wanted to break it, and said, "Steve, why don't we put here the bold goal of you in 4 years becoming the best freediver in the world?" Of course, I have those notes somewhere in my house still in Denmark. And so actually in 2003, so 1 year before the plan, you know, we did the Danish record, the Nordic record, but 1 year before the plan, I actually broke 3 world records within 5 or 6 months. The depth, the first man to pass 200 feet, historic because it was also done in the Big Blue era, but just with weights. And then the 200 meters, I was the first to pass. That's 4 lanes in an Olympic pool, 8 lanes in a semi-Olympic pool if people, you know, go swimming, holding your breath with you know, just underwater. And then the big moment came with that when that same friend got hit by Lyme disease. He had 2 children at that time. Nobody knew what was wrong. They thought it was all from a brain tumor to something with his eyes, because they were also, you know, rolling around, because the virus had actually infected the cerebellum, which controls our balance and movement and coordination. But it also went up into to the visual cortex, which sits right above the cerebellum, so in the hind part of the brain. So that's why his eyes were affected. And they thought it was all from, you know, MS, multiple sclerosis, to brain tumor, to I don't know what. He couldn't walk, he couldn't read. It was just hell on earth. And he had been given antibiotics, but not enough. So more and more people actually in this day and age.
Same age as you?
Lyme disease.
Yeah, but like in terms of age, is he the same age as you, or?
Yeah, we're the same age.
Wow.
So I just saw his life fall to pieces with 2 kids and a wife, and so and the doctors said there was nothing they could do, even the head surgeon and even the, you know. So I was like, well, I don't want to say that word now since we're on this wonderful call with you, but I said, you know, something with an F and kind of, hell no. There's no plan B. I remember so clearly when he called me on the phone. He couldn't speak. He also lost his ability to speak. So I said, hell no. There's no plan B. We're going to get you back on your feet again. So actually, I've done a TED talk on that, actually. If somebody's interested, they can find it on my YouTube channel on Breathology. There's a TED talk on that. And so to get back to it, that's when I realized the power of breathing. Because within 3 months, we got him to walk out of the hospital with this big North Face backpack, like 30 kilos, 55 pounds, walking out of the hospital, and never did a doctor think he could walk again and have a job again. And after that, he finished his PhD and he became member of the Danish whitewater rafting team. So that's how I saw breathing could do something for other people than myself.
So that, oh wow, so okay, so it's actually as a result of helping your friend, you figured there must be a way to actually be using this to help cure or to help improve someone's condition. And then from there, how long was it from that to then you saying, I'm actually going to be charging people to do this?
Yeah, well, actually, at that time, of course, the medical world, as they still are, were very conservative and very, you know, kind of old-fashioned minded. But all the physiotherapists, the people that actually work with people and have their hands on, they came down and saw all the training I did, because I did a lot of water training with him. I did a lot of breath holding to strengthen the nervous system and reset everything, because he needed to learn again, as you know, if you were a child. And then, of course, I knew breathing and the power of breathing from my performance, because in breath holding, if people on the call don't know what breath holding is, or free diving or apnea, it's just holding your breath and going underwater. So it's very easy to measure. And I actually spoke with Jon Kabat-Zinn, the father of mindfulness, a few years ago up at the beautiful Omega Center north of New York, where he was teaching and I was teaching. And I said, you know, I've been such a big fan of your work for a decade now. And the funny thing is that with what I call meditation underwater, you actually have a way to measure the span of mindfulness. And he was like, gosh, I've never thought of that. Because when you can actually measure in minutes or seconds or meters, you get kind of a measure of your ability to relax, your ability to focus your mind, your ability to concentrate on an object, and also, of course, your ability to go through pain and override the normal signals from your body, such as breathing or pain in your legs from lactic acid burning when you have no oxygen and so forth. So I knew the performance part, but this was a wake-up call for the rehabilitation. And then I got invited by a hospital to do a full protocol program for people with post-polio, which is a disease that hits people in childhood, but then post-polio means that it comes again. So like post is after. And when they get that condition again in the late life, like your age and my age, mid-life, it never goes away. So it's a very depressing and very dark illness, because you will deteriorate. So I made a protocol, I did a lot of water training, and this program still runs today in that same facility. Every Friday they have my yoga teacher coming and they do water work. Then I got into PTSD when I saw more and more veterans struggling, and I was in Men's Health, a magazine where they talked about the ice guru. That was me. Okay, nice article, very nice. I made a Guinness World Record under ice. But the article before me, just before me, was about a guy, Justin, who was 23 years old. Of course, I don't know this guy, a veteran from Iraq and Afghanistan. I think he was on 20 different drugs, you know, pharmaceuticals every day. And I thought there must be a better way. So I donated some money I actually made here in Mexico many years ago. And I donated a workshop in California at a beautiful hotel called La Valencia, if people know that place in La Jolla near San Diego. And I invited veterans to come, and I donated the rooms and the time and everything. So I started off and I saw that people really appreciated the work and the help they got and the change. So the performance came with my own performance, but you know, that, like you asked me, charging money only came after I started doing this work. The same I do with CEOs and big companies. I make them perform under pressure. And now I work with the Navy SEALs and with the Royal Danish Air Force and these institutions that really need to make right decisions in split seconds, because it is life and death.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, I want to come back to just that whole aspect of breath, because it is very interesting if you think about it. That basically, you know, there's one thing we all have in common, which is that we all breathe, and like the amount of training we get into how to breathe effectively isn't that strong. And we were talking this last month in a number of different venues around consciousness and how, you know, if you measure your life or your day, not just by how many seconds you're living, but by how many breaths you take, there's no question that when you slow your breathing down in a meditative state, you slow your consciousness, you speed up time. And similarly, if you breathe very fast, if you're in a very high adrenaline state, you also speed up consciousness and you slow down time, and your ability to control time through your breathing or your concept or awareness of time is pretty amazing. And that, of course, then changes your state. And most of us, where we're challenged, is that we're just in the wrong consciousness at the wrong time, which is why we never can really perfect the things that we're doing, right? And how someone actually gets ready to get on stage, how someone gets ready for an important meeting, how someone gets ready, like all those different things. There's so much to do with breath. And of course, the word breath in Latin is spiritus, which is where we get the word spirit. So the whole link to this, to all of how you actually gain mastery in your own life, definitely for everyone on this call, you know, Stig's part of our community. Make sure you go to his Breathology page, because there's a lot of really, really awesome resources right there for you to just get that clarity. And Stig also gifted me one of his books, which I'm in the middle of reading, and it's just amazing in terms of, it's called Breathology as well, just the idea of how you go about basically controlling your mind, controlling your body through controlling your breath is really powerful. So we're going to come back to Stig in a moment, but with that same thought process around taking what you're passionate about, turning it into something when you realize that it's of value to others, that people actually can get value out of, and then making that effectively your vocation, being able to make money out of that. Obviously, that's a huge part of what you do about, Janet, and actually you have that same experience yourself through life as well. So I'd love, I know you've been on the mastermind before, we talked more at that point about how Passion Test is developed, but I would love for you to share just how it actually got created in the first place and how that led you on your journey, just like Stig for him and led on his.
Oh, God. Well, okay, before I do that, Stig, I'm so proud of you for really listening and loving your friends so much. That story just touched me, and I actually feel so emotional, because you know, you listened, you heard, you didn't let them give up. And that was the universe saying to you, okay, now we're going to take you to a whole nother level. You know, you passed, right? And then God, someday I'd like to interview you, because it was so clear that that's when your passion, when you realized, oh my God, I've got something here. You know, it's not just about, you know, holding my breath, Guinness Book of World Records, but now I can actually have a purpose in my life that's bigger than myself. And just good for you for taking care of those guys and putting on that program, you know, that was free for the PTSD guys, and just doing that. I mean, I just love how you're the teacher living the teaching. Roger knows that that's one of my most important, you know, things that I'm aspired to be. And I really feel that in you. What a good guy. And thank you for your work. And I'm like so excited to talk to you about my friends that need what you have to do, you know, what you share. I have a friend named Oscar, who's one of my Passion Test trainers, who woke up 4 years ago. He lives in Japan, Katsunori, but we call him Oscar. It's easier. And he woke up one day 4 years ago and he couldn't get out of bed. Just a guy like you, right? And he's one of my heroes, because he said he decided right in that moment that, okay, this has happened and I'm not going to have a negative thought about it. And so he's just been, you know, inspiring people left and right, even though he's in a wheelchair. He just came from one of my programs, and he's my hero every time. And I can't wait to, I really hope I can introduce him to you, and that maybe there's something there. I really felt it very strong. So I'm very emotional, because I love my friends, and I'm just so honored to be on this call. I don't even want to talk about this, but okay, how did it start? Well, in the Passion Test book, there's this whole story of how I stalked this woman all over the United States, but, you know, and started, you know, figuring out, okay, I really love to be a speaker, but how do I do it? And while I was sitting in her seminar, the woman's name is Deborah Poneman, and she started talking about a survey that had been given to the 100 most successful people in the United States. And what the survey found was that they were all living what they considered to be their top 5 passions. And Stig, no, I'm not one of those people that never had a 9-to-5 job. I actually had a 9-to-5 job. As a matter of fact, when you said that, I thought, God, I got to tell him, when I was a credit checker, you know, in Hollywood, right? And I had 2 phones, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so my life had really gotten to an all-time low. It sucked. And so I lied, and I went to the seminar, and, you know, as I'm sitting there and hearing about this survey, this big light went on. It was like, that was nature, just like, bam. You know, and I started thinking, okay, now if that's how they did it, maybe that can work for me. And actually, that wasn't really, Roger, even though I wrote that in the passion test, that wasn't really how the passion test really came to be. How the passion test, because you know what I did? It was so funny. I stalked this woman. I learned how to be a seminar leader. I started working on this, you know, I started like developing this little passion test that I had. But then I did this weird thing. I was very intentional one day and I went, I want to be married immediately. And this was like 3 weeks into working with this woman to be a transformational leader, which was my big passion. And of course I meet this guy and I immediately get married. And it was like, you know, for the next 3 years, life was really very strange. So fast forward, I'm working in a job. I'm running a marketing division for 40 marketers for the 3rd largest book buyer in the United States, in your favorite vacation spot, Fairfield, Iowa. And Marcy Shimoff, who's the co-author of Mini Chicken Soup for the Souls and New York Times bestselling author of Happy for No Reason, she called me one day and she said, hey, Janny, Mark Victor Hansen is giving a seminar in Cedar Rapids, and he'd like me to come and help him sell his books. Do you want to come? And I'm like, yes, because still I had this passion to be a transformational leader, but hadn't been doing anything with it, running this big old company's marketing division. And so I went to this seminar and I'm sitting in the back, I'm running this table with Marcy, and I'm really just so completely taken back by Mark Victor Hansen. He was just mesmerizing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's about 300 people in the seminar. This hotel manager runs in and he goes, there's a tornado and it's coming straight to the hotel. Everyone has to go and, you know, go through the kitchen and stand under a stairwell. And so we all went and stood under this stairwell. Mark Victor Hansen did the most cool thing. He said, wait a minute, before we go stand under the stairwell, let's visualize the tornado going in a different direction. And then we'll go to the stairwell. So we all took a minute. We did that. Went and stand under the stairwell. And we're all standing in this line. And Mark Victor Hansen, one by one, went up to everybody and he said, you know, so how are you doing? And because everybody was freaked, you know, like a tornado is coming straight at us. He gets to me and he says, so what's your passion? And I said, you know, God, I'm so glad you asked me, because I want to be a speaker just like you, but I just don't know how to get started. He goes, that is so interesting. He said, I'm giving a seminar in 2 months with Jack Canfield in Austin. Do you want to come? I thought, Roger, because he immediately goes, I'll send you a ticket. I thought, oh my God, you know, he wants me, right? Anyway, 2 months later, he sends me a ticket. It wasn't that. So I went to this seminar in Austin, and little did I know that Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen thought that I was the rock star there, because my company was selling thousands of their books. And so they just like had me walking around with them and hanging out with them at lunch. And I am like, oh my God, you know, dying and going to heaven. And I go back to Fairfield, Iowa, after I had attended this really fun seminar. And I thought, I want to do something really great for Mark, because he was so cool to me. So I thought of this program. I thought, I'm going to do an author signing program and bring Mark Victor Hansen. We're going to go to all of these big book programs that we put on, and we're going to sell a ton of books. And so I got it approved, and I called Mark up and I said, do you want to do this thing? Do you want to fly all over the United States with me? And we'll sell a ton of books. All you have to do is walk out, say hello, shake some hands, and, you know, sign some autographs. And he goes, yeah. And so Mark came and we sold a ton of books for him. And one night we're sitting there and I said, you know, you look really tired. You look tired. And he goes, yeah, I've been on this big, hairy tour. And I said, have you ever learned how to meditate? Because I teach transcendental meditation. He goes, no. I said, well, it'd be really good for you because it'll give you great rest. And would you like to? And he goes, yeah. And so we made a time. And I then flew to Newport Beach, California after our whole book thing was over. And I booked myself in a hotel for a week. And I taught him how to meditate every night. And, you know, so we became really kind of buddies. And then 2 months later, in the mail, I get this really amazing invitation. And it's from Mark Victor Hansen and his new business partner, Robert Allen, who wrote this, you know, the best-selling real estate book. And it said, dear Janet Bray Atwood, we would love to have you come and brainstorm with the top 50 marketing minds of all time. And there was Jay Abraham and Brian Tracy, and I don't know why Melanie Griffith was there, maybe for Star Power, Joe Polish, right? Just like all these whoozy guys. And then my name, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, I'm a little guy. But of course, it was such a cool invitation because they said, we're going to fly you there first class. We're going to put you in a 5-star hotel. And then we'll have you brainstorm with us on if your loved one's life depended on it, how would you pre-sell 1 million books? And I looked at that and I went, I don't know, but I went. And I remember walking in the hotel and I'm like, oh my God, because it was in Newport, California. It was lovely. It was so great. I was so nervous that I was ironing my dress. And, you know, and I wasn't even noticing what I was doing. The phone rang. I turned around. I didn't use the ironing board, which I should have. And poof, there was the couch on fire, right? And that was the state of my consciousness at the time, because I was so nervous, of course, right? There was a Janet Attwood moment. But anyway, I walk into this room when we just, you know, we're all getting together to do this brainstorming, and it's like in a horseshoe. And one by one, and we're all mic'd, we'd signed our life away, no matter what goes on here. Mark Victor Hansen and Robert Allen own it. And we all stood up and gave what we considered to be our brilliant ideas on if your loved one's life depended on it, how would you pre-sell 1 million books? And I don't even remember what I said. I really seriously mean that. I ran to the bathroom after, threw up, because I had so little self-esteem. I was just like, you know, I was just hanging by the seat of my pants, just like, because I wanted to be in that room, but I didn't think I had any deservability, right? So I was just like, you know, thank you, God, it's over. And the next morning, I'm sitting at this breakfast table with a couple of other people. It's over. I'm good. I didn't die. Robert Allen comes up to me and he goes, hey, Janet, you know, Mark Victor Hansen and I would like you to be our business partner. And he hands me this list. And on this list, he goes, these are 10 of our different projects. Pick the one you want to do. So I ended up choosing this program that ended up being called the Enlightened Millionaire Program. And it was a program where Mark and Bob were teaching all of these entrepreneurs how to create wealth so that they could go out and help the world. And our very first program was in La Jolla, California. And I'm really excited. My job was to just do all the logistics, set it all up, you know, no speaking. I was a wannabe speaker, and, you know, and make the stage ready for Mark and Bob. And the morning before the event, they walk into my office, and I was really cooked because my guy who was doing all of the logistics helping me had a heart attack 2 weeks before. So I was doing like mega work and staying up all night. And they walk in and they said, hey, Janet, you know, tomorrow when our seminar starts, and we had about 800 people in the seminar, they said, we can't be there for the first 2 hours because we're doing this really cool TV show we just found out. And I said, and actually I kind of screeched it, well, who's going to speak? And they said, you are. And I said, speak? I'm not a speaker. I'm a wannabe speaker. They said, no, Janet, you are. And they laughed, Roger, really, they were so mean. They laughed and they walked out the door, right? And I like freak out. I called Chris Attwood, my business partner at the time, and I told him what happened. I said, what am I going to do? I'm dying here. And we stayed up all night because Chris said, remember that little passion test that you created? You know, the one to get you out of your hell that you were living in? Remember that little test? Let's have you work on that. So we stayed up all night long. And the next morning I walk out onto the stage of the scariest 800 people of my whole life. And for the next 2 hours, I gave what is now known as the #1 tool all over the world, this little passion test. And the next thing I know, kaboom, everybody stands up. I had turned mine off, forgive me. That was the universe, right? Okay, hold on. That was the Janet Attwood moment. Wait a minute. Do not disturb, thank you. Okay, that's Chris. Okay, it's not my fault, it's the universe. It was Chris Attwood, he heard me. Anyway, so everybody stands up, gives me a standing ovation, and that was it. That was the birth of the passion test. It was right then that I realized, oh my God, I've got something. You know, and I tell that story because the story's like, it's loaded. Number one, you guys, you're never going to be ready. Forget it. You're never ready. You never feel good enough. You never feel like you've got it all together. And you don't. You know, we're here on this planet to learn. So forget it. Forget it. And when I am okay, I'm going to
close the Skype. Then it comes.
I put it on do not disturb. I swear to God, I've got the red on. What do I do?
You just close Skype on your top part.
No, I'm going to shut it down. Okay, sign out. Goodbye. Okay, sign out. Are you sure? Yes. Goodbye. All right. So there you go. All right. I hope I did that. So anyway, bottom line is, you guys never going to be ready. Also stay open. Like things like just now happened. There's no mistake ever. And so what's so cool about what just happened, and it might happen again unless I really turn this off, is that the universe doesn't play tricks, and everything is set up to just show, you know, to just show you and teach you and help you to just stay with whatever you're doing and let it be okay, knowing that you're always doing the very best you can, you know, and staying open to that moment of all possibilities. I mean, if I hadn't said yes, if I had run out the door and said, forget it, no way, never again, never, 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 I don't think I'd be on this call with Mr. Yogi Stig and the other great yogi, Roger Hamilton. You know, so know this, because the universe doesn't play tricks, and it's not a mistake that you love what you love. And we're all being used. We're all being used, and we're really being used now. And you can see how Stig was being used. It was being used, you know, here, it's all a cosmic setup. His whole cosmic setup was, God, when I'm a little kid, I want to play sharks and what was that? Sharks and something. I've got it. Sharks and goldfish. Yeah. I'm going to play sharks and goldfish. And it started with that fun thing that he loved to do. And it went from there and it built, you know, so that's a secret to living a passionate life. It's like, what brings you joy? What turns you on? What's, you know, sets your life on fire? And that's the universe setting you up. It's setting you up so that you can follow the breadcrumbs. You know, one of the things that we talk about in the passion test is your passions are like breadcrumbs that lead you onto the path of your destiny. You know, they're not your destiny. You know, you follow your little breadcrumbs as Stig did. And Stig, that was so cool. Your story is so fantastic. I mean, it's just the best, like, big story passion. You know, not only did you get all these Guinness World Records, but you are saving lives. And forever, you can wake up just feeling so good. And that's what it's all about. You know, it's all about being able to share your gifts with the world and knowing that, you know, who you are matters, and that what you can do is enough. I'm sure some people probably said to you, what? You know, you teach breathing for a living? I mean, everybody can breathe, right? Am I right? I mean, really. But you knew it, you know, like you listened to that voice within, and then you went for it. And this is you know, there's not like a lot to say about living a passionate life other than really just have the courage to not listen to your limiting beliefs. Have the courage to just block those things out that say, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, who am I? And just keep on that track. Because again, all of us have marching orders. And the universe doesn't play tricks. It's not a mistake that you love what you love. And each and every one of us have something here on this planet that we're being asked to come forward and share with the rest of the world. And luckily and hopefully, hopefully if you pray hard enough, right, then, what'll happen, and you have that intention. I noticed, Steve, that you have the saying, be intentional or intentional, right? Having that intentional to really do something that matters. And when you have that intention and it's so strong in you, then what you'll notice is synchronicity will start to come into play and the universe will open the doors. And don't grumble about the ones that aren't opening. Forget about that. What you do is you walk through the ones that are opening and just notice, just stay open to what is appearing now. And don't mind the detours, because everything's not a straight line. I'm sure, Steve, there were moments where you thought, I don't know if I want to do this. You know, like God, I almost died yesterday. I almost drowned. You know, I'm sure that you might have had that.
Jen, I'm going to, thanks for sharing. Sorry, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to give everyone a practical application. And then I've got a question for both of you that link into this as well. Everyone on the call knows about Ikigai, right? And knows these areas. The key thing is knowing what order you go in, because we're talking right now about passions, right? We're talking about what it is that you love, but we're also linking it into purpose, because you heard in both of Stig and also in Janet's case, you know, there's one thing if they were just doing what they loved, right? But what actually shifted was when they were doing what other people love, right? When you actually do what actually serves other people. And in both cases, it came from Broadside, right? In Stig's case, it came from, you know, his friend having suddenly a health challenge. In Janet's case, it came from her being invited to do things outside of her comfort zone. But it was actually, in both cases, to support or serve someone else. And then at that point, you have to draw on whatever it is that you actually now have built as your own expertise, just for yourself, for others. And in both cases, it was like this leap to have to do it as well. So one thing that a lot of people do is they go, well, I have to do this bottom one first. I have to figure out how to get paid. Even if it means it's not what I love, even if it means it's not what's purposeful. So the key thing is the moment you're put in a situation where it's like, I'm just going to go out and make money in something I don't actually want to do, you've got to catch yourself, because it doesn't start with the bottom one. In fact, it finishes with the bottom one. If it says, well, what does it actually start with? The answer is it really starts with what you love, because if you're not doing the thing that you love to begin with, you don't have the driver that's going to be driving you forward, even when it's not about the money. So you have to do what you love, and then you have to do the part that you're best at. Because if you're doing all the stuff that's hard, it's not actually going to get you there. And then the moment you're doing that, you then make sure it's actually something that the world needs, right? Because if it's just something that you're good at and that you love, no one else loves it, well, then you're not going to make money out of it. But the moment you're doing it in the way that others need, and in fact, doing it in ways you're not even getting paid for to begin with, which is exactly what happened in both of Stig and Janet's cases, that they were doing it for the love of it. And that then led to then proof that it actually worked, and then other people wanted to pay for it as well. And then that's when this becomes very easy, right? There's always a way to make money off what you love or what you're expressing yourself with. It's just most of us aren't doing it. So one key application for everyone is that on here on the Genius, oh, by the way, lots of people have been posting things down here, by the way, so really great to see. And I'll put all the links on here as well. But just to give you an idea of who kind of, you know, what kind of levels of people we have around the world. We've got Jan from Slovakia, we've got Cody from Gold Coast, Michelle from Johannesburg, we've got Heather from Derbyshire, UK, we've got Oxford on here as well, Durban, South Africa, Lake Tahoe, all different places that everyone's on. So great to see you on. Another one from Johannesburg, that's Jane here. So if anyone would like to post that haven't posted yet, go ahead and do that. We've got a couple of questions as well, which I'll come back to. And I posted this here, which is very much around what Janet was just talking about. What's really interesting about the whole hero's journey, which is Joseph Campbell's model, is it starts with the call to adventure, which you're hearing in both Janet and Stig's case, but straight after the call to adventure becomes the road of trials. And the road of trials is when things get tough. It's when you're put on the line to do things that's really easy to say no to. And the real question is, at that point, when you're actually being put to the test or being asked to do something beyond what you think you're capable of, are you going to say yes instead of no? Are you going to kind of take that call to adventure? And the road of trials is testing you to see you're actually up for the job or not, right? And the universe does this to everybody. And most people in the world say no, right? Most people say, I'm not ready for that. And so then the universe doesn't continue. It goes and knocks on the door of the person who is ready, right? And so this is about you just stepping in the moment you actually experience it. So I want to talk about the end point of that, which is what it is to be world-class. Because in both Stig and Janet's case, they're top in the world in what they do, but they didn't start that way. And my belief is it's possible for everyone to be top in the world of what you do, but what it requires is a way of thinking about who else is top in the world. So I'm going to start with you, Stig, and I'd love to, when you decided, okay, look, you know what, I think I can actually be able to beat everyone else in the world at this. Obviously, to do that, you have to learn from the best in the world. And today, like even being in La Paz, when you're traveling around the world, you're constantly now meeting with people who are the best in the world, because the best in the world, or the ones who want to be best in the world, go and look out for the people who are best in the world already. So could you talk a little about that change in mindset and the way that now you constantly think about who do I need to connect with who are at that level that can rise you up to that level too?
Absolutely, and of course you are right in that if you want to be the best, you need to find the masters. So as one simple example that's easy to understand, when I wanted to be the best in the world to swim this long distance with a monofin, so kind of like the merman,
right?
I went back to my best friend or a good friend from, not my best friend, but a good friend from for many years I played underwater rugby, which is another crazy game you don't know, but it's kind of going nuts like American football, just at 15 feet at the bottom of the pool, and you have this iron basket in the bottom, and you throw the ball in there, a salt or sugar water-filled ball, and you kind of go crazy down there. So he was a he is 4 times world champion in fin swimming, which is kind of like this dolphin swimming. And I come from a background of swimming like he did, and his sister is the biggest swimmer of all time in Denmark, Mette Jacobsen. But this guy Bo was, you know, just incredible. He was beyond amazing, and he could just take any pain, and I've never met anyone in my life training so hard. So what I did was I asked him for his help. So I kind of trained his swimmers in the breath holding thing, and now there's a lot of things changing in normal swimming with breath holding, and yeah, people doing world records now without breathing. If people that follow swimming will see the sprints are done without breathing now, like in running. But anyways, I went down to his, you know, home and became friends of the family. I'm not saying you should do that with everyone, but that's how I did it. And we became friends for life. So that is one example. Of course, I sought other masters. My mentor is Umberto Pellizzari, who is a great inspiration, and also, like Janet would say, filled with passion. And that is why people, I thought about him yesterday actually, that's why people are actually, his book is right here, not to make any, I just brought it up by coincidence, but this is the guy. He's very elegant in the water, Umberto Pellizzari, and he is so passionate about what he does that people are dragged in his slipstream, you know, whether they like it or not, just by seeing how elegant and gracious he is in the water, like dancing ballet. And he's such a nice guy and bright, but he's so helpful. So a big mentor. And his mentor was Jacques Mayol, that everyone who follows The Big Blue or Le Grand Bleu, this movie that came out, actually the guy who brought yoga and ancient tradition into modern freediving. So I'm kind of third generation of that. So again, I found Umberto, who was the greatest of all time in the world of freediving, and I learned from him, and later had the privilege of becoming his friend. Then I came to California 10 years ago. I became friends with Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who is, for those who don't know the guy with this strange name, he's the father of flow. He coined the term flow. Actually, a funny story is, I've known him for a few years now, and he's such a funny guy, and very, very smart, obviously. So he interviewed basically artists and athletes in the 70s and 80s, and he found that the great thing they had in common was this ability to just focus on something, totally get absorbed in it, which is passion, right? And forget about time and eating and, you know, putting new clothes on. They're totally absorbed in their action, because that is the purpose of what they're doing, of their life. So he called actually flow autotelic experience. So from Greek self, under self, you know, experience, autotelic. And nobody knew what the hell it was. Nobody understood it. But then when he called it flow, not that he was into marketing like Janet was working with, but you know, it became an overnight instant, you know, and now flow is like you, and you use it a lot, Roger, for money and passion, and it flows through you, you know. And so I've always, and he is a professor of psychology, just to make that clear. So, you know, how I could control my body was from Bo, from the swimming, from Umberto, from the techniques of freediving, from mindfulness, from, you know, psychology, from the best in the world. And I've sought many other masters in the world. And now I came to you because I think I'm at a point in my life where I need to have guidance in areas that I'm not very versed in and experienced in, which is growing a company, attracting either investors or partners, collaborators, and truly, you know, changing the world one breath at a time, which is what we're doing in Breathology, because so many people are not taught to breathe. We're taught how to run, kind of what to eat, and also to a certain degree what to think, but nothing about how to breathe. And we do breathe 30,000 times a day, everyone watching this call. And, you know, we can be in two worlds, either the stressful system, which is fight or flight, adrenaline, cortisol, the modern world, we can call it, Western civilization, or we can take the other pathway of the same nervous system. It's just a different route. And that's the rest and digest, digesting feelings, emotions, healing wounds, depression, you know, stress. So many people have PTSD. We all have trauma. I was with Dan Brulé, the great master of breathing, that is also a mentor of mine. I was with him yesterday down in this beautiful area in the mountains, and he said, well, if you're born, you have PTSD, right? We all have a trauma in life that we need to work with. So you can either choose the soft way or the hard way, and we can do that through conscious breathing. But nobody's ever told us how to do it.
Exactly.
That's my job.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm going to come to Janet in a second on this whole world-class thing as well, because I think it's so key that it is such a small world at the top, and they're welcoming anyone who actually wants to get to the top as well. It's just the vast majority of people never even make the call. They don't even like imagine they can be world-class. They never go to the people that are world-class. So I'm going to come back to that in a second, but just on your point about breathing, Catherine Ord had a question, which I'm going to ask you straight out here. It says, coming back to beginner's mind, what's your suggestion, first steps for those who are just becoming aware of their breathing and the power of breath? And then also at the same time, you know, can this be something that can impact chronic depression or people with addictions? And I'll mention this just about Catherine. Catherine's husband, Russell Ord, is one of the best big wave photographers. He does a whole lot of photography work with like the top surfers. And so he himself needs to kind of like, you know, learn how to hold his breath and so on, because he's in these massive waves all the time, right? But just in terms of that question, what are the first steps for someone who's just getting started, and to what extent can it actually help with depression or addictions? What would be your answer to that?
Great questions, very important questions in this day and age. First of all, the awareness is number one. You know, the awareness is the way you breathe. It's just the way the life flows in you. So the way you breathe is the way you feel, right? There's no getting around it. The nervous system is so intimately linked to our mind, to our body, to our physiology, neurology, our spirit, that we cannot fake it. So just becoming aware of how you breathe, either asking your family members or your friend, your loved one to watch you or film you, as we all have phones. And soon you'll see that maybe you're a mouth breather, you know, maybe you're a chest breather, putting a lot of pressure on the heart, having, you know, hypertension without knowing why. So you don't need medicine. No, you need to breathe with your diaphragm and just get the heart space to work. Use your nose so you get more nitrogen oxide, so you oxygenate the blood. You know, use the nose. The nose is for breathing. The mouth is for eating. You know, just those basic things. So the awareness is step one, and Catherine is already alluding to that. But then step two is the consciousness. I don't want to put a shameless plug here, so I'll just put a little piece of the book, not the whole book. No, but you see, the art of conscious breathing. I don't know if you can see it, but that is the point. Step two is being conscious. So awareness is just how breathing flows in you. Like you're talking to me now, Janet is listening, and the way I breathe actually affects everyone on this call, because I'm like this, you know, public speaking, everyone gets agitated. But if I'm flowing, the breath in me becomes a breath in you through this screen, and even my cat, you know, will come and at some point, you know, play a trick, and you can pull out the penguin if you want. I mean, your pet, not the, so sorry. So, you know, the way you breathe affects your surroundings, and that's very important for leaders to know, for business leaders, for parents, you know, that like with animals around you, you know, they are registered in the way you breathe. So step two is consciousness. Then step three is actually to learn to relax. And that actually relates straight to the husband here with the big wave surfing. I teach some of the best surfers in the world, Courtney Conlogue, Greg Long, a lot of the most phenomenal surfers of our day and age. And I actually have another program on that online, but people can go and find that, The Ultimate Surf Survival, where I actually did that because I lost my best friend in 2012. 6th of August, he drowned, Alex, my best friend. So I thought, what can I do? I can do a you know, awareness program on safety, also for parents. What do you do if you find your kid in the pool? Nobody's taught how to bring them out and how to resuscitate and all this. But back to your question, relaxation is so overlooked, and especially in this hectic world, we think that we must push and perform and run and breathe, you know, but nobody talks about the pause. Notice what I just did there, right? No, nobody talks about the pause, about letting go, about relaxation, about giving in, about surrendering. You know, it's all in the yogic scriptures in every tradition. I was just in the beautiful Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, you know, of the Aztecs, of the greatest nations. in all the big traditions of the thousands of years we've gone through, there've always been this awareness and breath and spirit, like you said, spiritus, right? Inspire, right? Expire. So inspire, take the spirit in, take the soul, the purpose, the passion in, you know, when you inspire and then letting go, expire, you know, helping others. And we miss that part. We're only thinking about, you know, the greedy part, many of us, many people, taking, having, food, sex, you know, all this and that, wealth, money, but not so much about giving. And as soon as you understand that giving is half the yin and the yang, you know, it's complementary, then, like you said before, don't start taking the money, start by giving. Then those two things merge together and becomes complete. So what I teach people, and what I would suggest for Catherine and her husband, is actually to look at the whole aspect of the breathing process, which is half breathing, half breath holding. That's why I'm bringing in breath holding, because the pause, every time we breathe, Roger, and everyone listening, every time we breathe 30,000 times a day, the brain moves. When we breathe in an agitated way, in an uneven way, because we're not aware and conscious about our breath. So consciousness is the training of breathing. Oh, I'm conscious now. I'm not just breathing and aware that, ooh, I'm actually consciously breathing. I'm training. I'm doing something, an effort with my training, right? When you do that and control your breath, and as you said, you make it longer. All animals that live long, many years, you know, turtles and whales, they hold their breath and they breathe slowly, and the metabolism is low for that same reason. That's what I do when I do 20 minutes breath hold. I slow the metabolism down, meaning you burn less oxygen, right? You go in a state.
It's really amazing the difference when you're scuba diving between someone who's just getting started, who actually usually has to get up within 20, 30 minutes because they just
it's
panicking. And then when you become really good at it and you get double or triple the time underwater, and you actually every time you breathe in, you lift up, and every time you breathe out, you lift down. You just see how much the breath in your body just shifts the your entire environment, your entire state, everything.
Absolutely.
And it becomes almost like just like a meditation in flow, right?
And what you just showed there is actually a good picture of the brain as well, right? So just to end that little thing there, and before we come to this very important question about depression and addiction, you know, the brain is the same. So, you know, when you're agitated, the brain is kind of in a boxing fight. How can you have thoughts, creative thoughts, grand thoughts about helping the world and your purpose in life if your brain is in a MMA fight, you know? As soon as you slow down and the breath becomes the flow of life, it becomes effortless, it becomes natural, as it is in children before they get spoiled and broken and kind of get their own identity, you know, and have to be someone in the world and be in a certain way. Then the breath, you know, takes over in a bad way, because we're not learned to control the natural breath, as we see in children with the abdominal breathing in the natural flow.
Absolutely.
So yeah, the brain needs rest.
Let me come back to you on the whole depression and addiction thing to finish it off, because I want to come over to Janet as well with two things. First of all, Janet, just that whole thing around world class. I mean, you're the one that invited me to come along to the Transformation Leadership Council, and I was just back there again in January, and that's a whole group of people that meet up with each other, where every one of them is world class in something, right? They're all top in their game in some area, and to be in a community of some sort where that's the case is such a critical thing as well. I'm going to ask you to just share a bit about, like, even though at the beginning you were getting pulled into it, everything you do now is about, like, how do you find the best in the world? And you've done that going out to India, going to places in the world to do that. Would you like to share a bit about, for anyone here who's feeling, you know what, I'm not there, or I don't feel I am world class at anything, what would be your suggestion to them to get connected at the right level?
Oh, I love that question. You know, it's funny because I was actually before the call talking to Stig about it. The name of my company is called Enlightened Alliances. And, you know, what happened with me? I was creating an Enlightened Alliance with Mark Victor Hansen, right? I was finding out what is his critical need. And for someone who, you know, like you feel like you're on your way, but you're not there and you don't know how to connect or get there, you know, what I would say is join programs like yours, Roger, where there's people like Stig sitting in your audience, right? Make sure that you ask a lot of questions and share, you know, and ask, what is your most critical need? And the way to create an enlightened alliance, and what an enlightened alliance is all about, is that we've coined this little saying, Chris Atwood and I, when two people come together to gain maximum, give maximum, both receive maximum. So how I started, and I saw it, it wasn't a conscious thought, but I was always thinking, you know, how can I help that person? And, you know, what can I do? Because that's just like fun. And what I found, though, is that when people do that, you know, just like Stig, you know, he wanted to help this person, he wants to help that person. Well, people naturally want to give as well. And if you're starting on this track and you don't know how to connect with people that might be at a different level than you, and you know that they have something that you need, well, here's what you do. You find out, what do they need? You find out what they need, and you know, maybe you'll have to go to the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper is usually their right-hand person, you know, and start talking to them and find out, ask questions. What is this person's most critical need? And if you can naturally fulfill their most critical need, then all of a sudden you're separating yourself from someone who, you know, I know, Roger, for you go to, and I'm sure Stig too, you go to conferences, you go to seminars, you do all these things all over the world, and people come at you and they say, you know, will you write the foreword to my book? Will you do this? Will you do that? And then every once in a while, there's someone who really knows, you know, what you're up to, and they say, you know, I have this great idea, Roger, of how I can help you get all these people into Genius U. And then all of a sudden, isn't it true that all of a sudden they've got your ear? Oh my God, because why? Because that's one of your most critical needs, isn't it? You want to create this huge worldwide wonderful learning opportunity for entrepreneurs. And then all of a sudden, you know, what naturally happens is that other person wants to be there for you and feel, you know, oh, well, you know, yeah, what are you doing? What are you up to? And when you can fulfill someone's critical need and they can fulfill your critical need, what you've got is an enlightened alliance. So I would say, you know, get really super clear, be intentional, be really clear, notice who is someone that can help you, like Stig was sharing, that has knowledge that can raise you up to a whole nother level, and then find out what is their most critical need. And and maybe you can't fulfill it, but I'm sure you probably know someone who can. And with that, you know, you can create enlightened alliances all over the world. My mentors have been Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, you know, and little did I know when I was teaching transcendental meditation in Fairfield, Iowa, you know, and that I was fulfilling one of his critical needs. And he had me come and work with him for 2 years, traveling all over Europe and other parts of the world. With Byron Katie, the same thing. You know, she came to me and said, what do you do? I said, well, I run this marketing division. She goes, I want you to be my marketing director. I want you to come move into my house, live with my 2 assistants, and you know, the rest was history. This is how you fulfill these critical needs. I could fulfill hers, she could fulfill mine, and what I got was I got to raise myself up. And you know, it's a conscious thought, as Stig said. You know, be really super conscious, be really intentional, be really clear on what it is you'd like to create. Find the people that you know can help you, and then figure out what is their most critical need.
Very cool. And a large part of that as well is that for anyone on the call, if you're focusing at the energy of those who are helping you least. I mean, I've been seeing a few of my friends that have good branding online and so on, and they're spending their time at the moment answering trolls on the internet and like haters who are like saying stuff, and it's like, the amount of energy they're focusing at that level when they could just be ignoring all that and actually be instead serving the people that are the world-class people. Keep really aware that you've got limited time. So you're paying your attention at the lowest common denominator or at the highest common denominator is really key as well. Now, I know we've gone over time, so I'm going to finish with just an answer from each of you for a particular question coming up from the group at the moment. So Stig already knows the one that was asked around the whole anxiety and depression side, which actually is being added to by Nick Papadoulos, who's said also does it work for like kids with ADHD, anxiety, and so on. So I'm going to come back to Stig in that one in a moment, but I'm going to start with you, Janet. Dale Ingram's asked a question. here where he says, I feel that I've been blocking my passions for many years to do the things that bring in money. Due to this, I feel like I've been desensitized myself to the universe's guidance. So how do you go about unlocking or clearing the block? And just to give you a bit of an idea, Dale actually races motorbikes, right? So he clearly has some passions that he has not been making money on, but he doesn't. So what would you say for those who go, geez, I know I should be listening to the universe, but maybe it's already given up on me, or maybe it's looking the other way? How do you get back to tuning back into it?
I love this question. You've been hearing it. I mean, Stig has been saying a lot, you know, what does he do? He's breathing, you know, learn Stig's breathing, get more in alignment with yourself. All it means is that you're off your point, right? You're out of flow. You know, do what one of my friends does, you know, go into silence, right? Go into silence for a week, get your psychic space. Obviously you need psychic space, and then just listen, learn a meditation practice where you transcend. Transcend means go beyond the thinking process so that you can experience a very profound state of awareness. You know, do all of these things that can get you back into that state of flow, as Roger talks about as well. And then what you'll automatically be doing is you'll automatically be just aligning yourself with that knowledge that wants to come in, you know, with these limiting beliefs, with these thoughts of, you know, I'm blocking myself, I'm blocked. You know, yeah, you are. And it's just because your mind is in the way. So what do you have to do? You have to get out of your mind. How do you get out of your mind? Create this beautiful psychic space. Do something to create this really fulfilling, wonderful, I love myself feeling. So whatever that is, you know, do those things, and then, you know, really super pay attention by being intentional. And before you do anything, just say, you know, my intention now is that I'm going to draw to me the people, the places, the things that I need in order to get really clear on what it is that my gifts are. And then, and go back to that time when you were little. What did you love to do? Just like Steve, you love to play sharks and whatever. You know, I mean, go back to that time, get really super simple. And to be able to do that again, you know, step away from the busy world and get yourself silent, because in silence, everything comes.
That's so awesome. I think what a lot of people get stuck on with that is just even the word mindful. I mean, the word mindful is actually the total opposite of what it is. It's not mindful, it's mind empty. But it's like people kind of like think about
empty for mindful.
Right. I mean, it's spiritual, right? It's like spiritual, like, and then it allows you to separate the mindful, the heartful, the bodyful parts of your body by actually experiencing the spirit, which again comes back down to breath. As everyone knows, you know, mindfulness starts with breathing. So that brings me. So that's awesome, Jack. I'm going to bring back to Stig. Stig, you know the question that people are asking on your side. What would you answer for that?
Yeah, first I would say I think that the answer was phenomenal from Janet, because it is all about this space and creating this, you know, psychic spiritual space. It's very true. So to this very important question, or these kind of bundle questions about depression and anxiety, because WHO has, you know, like you want a billion entrepreneurs, or we were seeing that, you know, within a year or so. 2020 is also what was, you know, forecasted to be when stress becomes the most killing factor on this planet. And we are seeing it every day. And a little bit of you know, in the yogic traditions, they call it monkey mind. So this kind of rambling mind, the little monkey that runs up the trees, pull the tail, steals, you know, your camera and stuff, this little naughty monkey, little cheeky monkey. That is our mind. It's usually in the past or in the future. Like, oh, I'm nervous for that, or I'm getting on stage, or what am I, you know, what's going to happen, or, oh, I made a mistake, or I should have done that. And you can never change what you didn't do. So it's about your thinking. So to give people some actual exercise here, because depression is a horrible situation to have in your life or in your circles, so devastating. And also the traumas, whether it's from war or sexual assault or other, you know, accidents or illness, and even just, you know, feeling out of passion, like this gentleman was asking, and out of your flow. With breathing, you have this absolutely phenomenal tool of taking control of your life, taking the control back. And so, yeah, Breathology wants to teach the world to breathe better, of course. But what I actually want to teach people is how completely amazing our body is. Our, beautiful bodies as they were created from nature or God or whatever you believe in. And we're not taught how to run that machine at all, And I just loved, like today I taught a girl here swimming. She could not swim. She's, 32. And I taught her in 10 minutes. She was like, oh my, and she's going to swim every day now. It was very simple, just some kicking, some arms and putting it together, and she could swim. So people should use their body, and it is a temple, So one exercise would, also entrepreneurs. We're talking about this 1 billion entrepreneurs. We don't have a manual. This is actually a manual manual of freediving. You look at page 68 and it says dive to 80 meters, right? Do this and that. We don't have a manual in an entrepreneurial world. That's why I'm seeking masters like you, Roger, and your team to help me lift me up and be a better leader for my team, because that's not something you can learn. You need to do it the hard way or the smart way or both. So for people with, fear, anxiety, being entrepreneurs, having too many balls in the air, or not being able to fall asleep, which is another big unhealthy thing, they should do 1-2 breathing. 1-2 breathing is a little gift I will give. And it's just breathing in at a count of 1, or so it would be 5, right? So slight pause, we need the pause, and then exhale for 10. And a slight pause again. So there are 4 phases in the breathing, not what people think in and out, in and out. There are 4 phases, like square breathing. So a circle, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, pause, turn the breath, exhale, pause, land the breath, turn, and inhale. So when you do that, you trigger the vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve. We have the 10th cranial nerve. We have 12 in all. It's absolutely not important. But the cranial nerve that runs here, the vagus nerve, runs into your heart. It sends threads into your lungs. It sends threads into all your internal organs, the liver, the spleen, the kidneys. So you actually do, contrary to what you can look up in a medical book, you have the ability to consciously control your heart rate. You can lower your heart rate. You can breathe more fully with your lungs. You can affect your digestion. All those are the secrets from yoga that they have known in the Vedic scriptures and all these ancient, things passed from master to student. But in the modern medical world, we're like, no, take some pills and lower your heart rate and your stress and your anxiety and your depression and take more pills. You could just get drunk or take drugs, which is the same as medicine. It doesn't go to the root cause of the problem, the spiritual pain, the stories we carry with us. So we need to be able to draw a line in the sand and move on from there and write a new story. And with breathing, you actually have a tool that's free. It's available 24/7. And you just need to, harness this power. And it just starts from awareness, as this Catherine asked, and consciousness, and then playing along with it, slowly, baby steps.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for that. That's awesome. And for everyone who's listening, I posted all the links down here, even the Flow TED Talk by Mihaly, they're all in here as well. And the 2 big things to come off this call, at this point, definitely take the Passion Test micro degree, and also I've linked the Follow the Flow micro degree, and it'll only be a matter of time before we also have Stig's Breathology on GeniusU as well. So huge thank you. We've gone over time, but it's been definitely worth it because of the content you've given. So thanks very much to Stig. Thank you very much to Janet, and also Stig's cat as well, who's been with him all around the world. So have a fabulous month ahead, everyone, and thanks both of you very much for your time. See you next call. Bye.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for listening.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.